only thing we have to fear is
in war.
fear itself.
There is no substitute for victory.
Let us never negotiate out of fear.
We stand undivided, forever united, fighting hand in hand for the liberty we've earned, for glory and honor, for our sons and daughters, ever mindful of the lessons we've learned. Let the torch of freedom burn.
Thanks for joining us today on WallBuilders Live, the intersection of faith and politics. I'm Rick Green here with David Barton, and we've had a little more than a couple of weeks here to digest the results of the election. Big changes in terms of state legislatures across the country and the U.S. Senate, of course, and even some changes in the House. David, there's been a big change over here, and now you've had a chance to really look at it. What do you kind of expect from this?
Well, the question becomes, what are we going to see out of this, where you have a split, I don't want to say administration, but a split federal government. You have, and having said that, I may be more accurate than I thought, because we know the presidency is in the hands of liberal Democrat. The House and Senate are in the hands of Republicans, some conservative, some not. But you have a Republican-Democrat split. So you get to the Supreme Court, you know what? It's split too. It's 4.5 to 4.5. You got 4 liberals, 4 conservatives, and you got a squishy guy who goes both ways. You just can't figure out what he believes. And so really, we have a federal government more split than we've seen it at any point in our life. And you look at that and say, all right, what can they get done? Congress has an opposite agenda from the president and vice versa. So, well, if you look back, I think we know what the Congress might try to do. I think we can predict that. And by the way, leading up to the election, and President Obama kept saying this, we have a do-nothing Congress, we have an obstructionist Congress, and he kept saying that, which I find amazing, because the House has passed more than 300 bills that the Senate would not take up. House is Republican, the Senate is Democrat. Let's see, is it obstructionist Republicans we're talking about? Passed 300 bills? Maybe obstructionist Democrats in the Senate. No, it may be obstructionist Harry Reid. That's who it is.
Sounds like the House is actually getting work done.
Well, grab this. Well, I can understand why Harry Reid wouldn't want to pick up these 300 bills, because they were so stinking partisan. I mean, Republicans were actually trying to cram their agenda down the Senate's throat. So you can understand where a Democrat leader would not want to pick up Republican bills. I mean, that makes sense, right? Except that out of those 300-plus bills, 200 of them were passed unanimously. That means every Democrat in the House agreed with the bill.
Bills that are passed unanimously by the people's representatives, and not taken up by Harry Reid.
And it's the obstructionist Republicans. And by the way, there were an additional 100 bills that passed with 75% Democrat support. Now, we're talking 300 bills that were passed by the House that had at least 3/4 Democrat support up to unanimous, and it's the obstructionist Republicans. It's the House who won't get anything. I don't think I heard on any news report out there the characterization of what the House had done and sent to the Senate, and that it was Harry Reid's hyper-partisanism that wouldn't pass them. I mean, and by the way, some of the things that the House agreed to pass, defunding Common Core. Hey, I think that's fairly popular. Yeah, bipartisan. And the REINS Act. We're not going to allow agencies to make regulations into law. Any regulation that has a substantial economic impact has to be voted on by Congress. No more agencies making these impactful laws. That's a great one. Had all sorts of support for that. Can't get Harry Reid to pick it up. So, you can be sure that a lot of these bills are going to come back again. Because Democrats supported them before, they supported them, they will support them now, especially after the results of the election. You got all these new freshmen in, I think there's 42 freshmen in the House. There's a dozen new Republican faces in the Senate. I think 9 are brand new seats. 3 of the faces were Republicans replacing Republicans who retired. So you got 12 new Republican faces in the Senate. That'll certainly change what they pick up. Now, when they get it to the president, will he be able to veto what Democrats have been unanimous behind in the House, and what 3/4 of Democrats have supported on more than 100 occasions? We'll see. But I think we may have more possibility of success than maybe what we imagine, because of the nature of how bipartisan these bills were.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. We've actually got a congresswoman that's been at the forefront of this and helping to get all of those good bills passed and leading the charge in the House. That's going to be part of the team planning that strategy in the coming year with this new Congress. Marsha Blackburn from Tennessee will be with us when we come back. Stay with us on WallBuilders Live.
This is David Barton with another moment from America's history. How should we respond if confronted with frustration and conflict? The proper response was given over 200 years ago in a lengthy speech when Benjamin Franklin told the delegates at the Constitutional Convention, "In this situation of this assembly, groping as it were in the dark to find political truth, how has it happened, sir, that we have not hitherto once thought of humbly applying to the Father of lights to illuminate our understanding? Have we now forgotten that powerful friend? Or do we imagine we no longer need His assistance? God governs in the affairs of men. I therefore move that henceforth prayers imploring the assistance of heaven and its blessings on our deliberations be held in this assembly every morning before we proceed to business." Benjamin Franklin knew that prayer was the proper response.
For more information on God's hand in American history, contact WallBuilders at 1-800-8-REBUILD.
Let the torch of freedom burn.
Welcome back to the intersection of faith and politics. WallBuilders Live with David Barton and Rick Green. Our guest today, Congresswoman Marsha Blackburn. Good to have you, ma'am. Thanks for coming on.
It is good to be with you. Thank you so much.
From the great state of Tennessee, of course.
Yes, indeed.
Well, I assume there's some excitement on Capitol Hill among Republicans and the opportunities that present themselves in the new session coming up. We wanted to get you on to talk about all those bills you guys passed out of the House that Harry Reid killed in the Senate, and now you have a chance to get them through both chambers, what to do with a president that's likely to veto them, and just kind of what y'all's plans are.
Well, I think there's a couple of things there. Number one, yes, there is some tempered excitement. There is also an awareness that we've got to make certain that people realize we can't get everything done in a week. And while we are planning to work very aggressively, we know that that's not going to happen because the president is already showing these signs of going through and doing things by executive order, which means he doesn't want to work with us. We're going to have to come around on the back side and clean all of this mess up. And, of course, 2016 will be able to do even more of that mess cleaning up than we're able to do this year. Now, we are very hopeful that we're going to be able to get these bills through that are on Harry Reid's desk. And I think that when people say, oh, well, nobody's done anything in Washington, that's not right. The House has been hard at work. And we've got 387 bills that are on Harry Reid's desk. And we think he should call the vote, take up those bills, pass those bills, and do some things for the American people.
No, I think you make a great point. A lot of people do sit back and say, oh, it doesn't matter who you elect. Nothing gets done. Nobody's doing anything. But you guys have been hard at work once you took over the House. Give us some examples of the types of things that y'all have passed out of the House and that if we had control of both chambers and the presidency, we could likely get through.
Yeah, and we've got some great ones. And by the way, when you talk about getting these 387 bills through, it's important for your listeners to know that 98% of those bills are bipartisan. They came out of the House with the bipartisan vote. Now, the interesting thing is that 298 of those 387 bills, 298 are veto-proof. That means they had a minimum of a two-thirds majority vote in the House.
Okay, so that's news to me for sure. So those are bills that if you can do the same thing this time around and do the same thing in the Senate, then we could get past a presidential veto.
Exactly, because, you've got all these bills that have had an enormous bipartisan vote, and they're just sitting there, and Reid won't take them up. And I have to tell you, the first call I got on Wednesday morning after the elections on Tuesday was from a Democrat who had a bill that I had helped with. They had authored the bill. 60 of those bills were authored by Democrats. and it was still in the Senate, and the first thing they said was, hey, do you think Harry Reid's going to let our bills through? I said, well, I don't know. I don't think he'll take my call. Maybe he'll take yours. But here are some things that are sitting over there. Keystone Pipeline, that was one of the first bills we passed in the 113th Congress. It's been on his desk for 2 years. We passed another version of it just the other day, and the Senate is set to take that vote up this week. We also have 40 bills that are over there that deal with creating the right environment for work, helping communities and getting rid of rules and regulations that would help with jobs growth. 40 different bills that are sitting there to do that. We have 38 different bills that deal with repealing different portions of Obamacare. And people will say, well, you've not offered any replacements. Oh, yes, we have. And you've got about a dozen replacement bills that have passed the House. So the things that would solve the problems with Obamacare, whether it's a device tax or liability issues, they're on Harry Reid's desk. Another thing is securing the southern border. If you remember, we stayed and worked an extra day in August, and it was to do two things, pass two bills. One of them was Congressman McCall and Kay Granger's bill that would secure the southern border, allow funding for National Guard troops to go to the border. The other was a provision that I have in the House and Ted Cruz in the Senate, and that bill would end up freezing the president's DACA program, deferred action for childhood arrivals, delaying all of these deportations and hearings. It would freeze that program and would basically defund it. We would do that through defunding it, not allowing money to be used for it.
See, that's two huge ones right there. Again, most people thinking, man, why doesn't somebody do something about what's happening on the border? Y'all are doing something. You've got great solutions there that have actually been passed in the House.
Right, and most of those that I've just mentioned, they're bills that have come out of the Conservative Republican Study Committee with people that have willingly taken up these bills. They've done their job. We're waiting on the Senate. We can't send them to the president's desk until the Senate says, yes, we're going to take them up and take an action. But Harry Reid has been the enabler, if you want to say so, of Barack Obama. He's enabled him to go out there and say, well, Congress is doing nothing. They're not sending anything to me. Well, that's because you've told Harry Reid, don't you dare let any of these bills land on my desk. I don't want these bills. And because of that, it appears that nothing is being done. And we in the House, especially us conservatives who have worked hard with the Speaker to try to get our bills heard and to the floor and passed, we want these bills put on the floor of the Senate, and we want the vote called.
Our guest today, Congresswoman Marsha Blackburn from Tennessee. Back in a moment right here on WallBuilders Live.
This is David Barton with another moment from America's history. In the case Lee versus Wiseman, the Supreme Court ruled that for an adult to mention the word God at a public graduation constituted both psychological and religious coercion against the students. Yet consider the actions of William Samuel Johnson, a signer of the Constitution and one of America's leading educators who served as the first president of Columbia College. At his graduation exercises, William Samuel Johnson declared to the students, "You this day have received a public education, the purpose whereof hath been to qualify you better to serve your Creator and your country. Your first great duties, you are sensible, are those you owe to heaven, to your Creator and Redeemer." Founding Father William Samuel Johnson believed that a public graduation was an appropriate setting to remind students of the duties which they owed God.
For more information on God's hand in American history, contact WallBuilders at 1-800-8-REBUILD.
Let the torch of freedom burn.
Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us here on WallBuilders Live. Congresswoman Marsha Blackburn with us. We're talking about the agenda in the House and the Senate. Will the House be able to take these bills that they passed that Harry Reid sat on for all these years? Will they be able to get them over to the Senate and get them through the Senate, possibly even veto-proof? But if nothing else, at least force Barack Obama to make a decision and either veto or sign. But how much did the Senate change with these elections? I know you don't have a crystal ball, but just based on the numbers and the folks that did get elected this time around, I mean, what do you think will happen over on the Senate side? Do you think you'll have a Senate that has enough, not just Republicans, but folks that do want to move forward in a positive way, that these things will move through the Senate and be put on the president's desk?
Oh, yes, we do. We have been hard at work and talking with our senators and making certain that they are going to take these bills up. And, you know, we weren't waiting to see if we won. We were working that on the premise that, yes, we are going to win, because we know that the American people are as sick and tired of this as we are. And the frustration with Harry Reid and the president in the Senate is bipartisan in D.C. There are a lot of Democrats, you know, and I'm sure that y'all hear it on the radio show. It's hard to find a Democrat now that will admit to voting for the president, much less going out and working to get him elected.
Yeah, I got that question yesterday. I was doing a Constitution class in Houston, and one of the questions was, well, you know, I mean, if you don't have the 60 votes to get some of those things through, or some of the appointments and that sort of thing, will any Democrats come with us? And that's what I thought is, you know, there's a bunch of those Democrats that are still running for cover. The ones that did escape this election are going to be looking for ways to survive the next election. So there's some opportunities for some good bipartisanship there.
That's exactly right. There is, and yes, I think they realized they had pushed too far to the left, and people are frustrated with them, with all of us. That's fair to say. They're frustrated with all of us. But what we have to realize is that people right now want to see these jobs done. They want to see things cleaned up. They don't want this to languish. And so what we have to do is just say, okay, we're going to do our best, and we're going to get these off the desk.
What do you think will be the priority, Congresswoman? What in your mind, what are the just top three, let's say, that you would push for to try to get out of the House quickly and over to the Senate?
Well, I think that there are two premises that you're going to see us work from. Number one is going to be the security agenda. And embodied in that is going to be issues that deal with our national security, our border security, job security, economic security, retirement security. So you will see probably a half dozen or so bills that will move forward quickly that touch on that security agenda. And we're doing those because we realize, first and foremost, we have to secure freedom. You will see us also go on what I call the repeal agenda. People are tired of this. Government makes life difficult for them. So bills that focus on repealing and getting some of these inept, unproductive programs off the books, that is where we're going to be heading.
See, I mean, just letting people know that there is a good strategy there, that there is that you guys are going to play hardball is so important, because I think the frustration out there, especially with the grassroots and folks that have been fighting for these things for decades, sometimes they feel like, well, it's just, we elect good people, but it just still doesn't get done. So knowing that you guys are going to be aggressive, that you are going to play hardball, that you are going to move forward is so encouraging to those of us that want to see these positive changes. So we appreciate you. Appreciate what you're doing, and looking forward to great things, and look forward to getting you back in the spring to get some updates on what's happening.
Awesome. Sounds great. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Appreciate it. That's Congresswoman Marsha Blackburn. Back in a moment with David Barton. Have you ever wanted to learn more about the United States Constitution, but just felt like, man, the classes are boring, or it's just that old language from 200 years ago, or I don't know where to start? People want to know, but it gets frustrating because you don't know where to look for truth about the Constitution either. Well, we've got a special program for you available now called Constitution Alive with David Barton and Rick Green. And it's actually a teaching done on the Constitution at Independence Hall in the very room where the Constitution was framed. We take you both to Philadelphia, the cradle of liberty in Independence Hall, and to the WallBuilders Library, where David Barton brings the history to life to teach the original intent of our founding fathers. We call it the Quick Start Guide to the Constitution because in just a few hours through these videos, you will learn the Citizen's Guide to America's Constitution. You'll learn what you need to do to help save our constitutional republic. It's fun, it's entertaining, and it's going to inspire you to do your part to preserve freedom for future generations. It's called Constitution Alive with David Barton and Rick Green. You can find out more information on our website now at wallbuilders.com.
Let the torch of freedom burn.
Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us here on WallBuilders Live. Thanks to Congresswoman Marsha Blackburn for being with us as well. Back here with David Barton. Now, David, man, she was right on. Harry Reid, the enabler for Obama. I'm still trying to process the idea of what you said in the first segment. 200 bills unanimously passed by the House. That means Democrat, Republican, the people's representatives, all of them said yes, and yet one person, Harry Reid, was able to stop them from getting through the Senate.
Well, Harry Reid and the president. I mean, as Marsha pointed out, no question the president told Harry Reid, I don't want to see this stuff. So it's both of them. But, the thing about 200 bills being unanimous, you can now understand why a Democrat was the first call she got saying, do you think we can get these bills through now?
Yeah, it wasn't just Republicans.
It wasn't just Republicans. It's a Democrat. And by the way, Marsha's for many years been on the leadership team in the House. She's has been one of the four top leaders in the House on the conference chair, et cetera. And so, she's very intimately involved in this stuff and deciding what's going to go forward. And as she points out, and by the way, she had some amazing stats too, that 60 of those bills had been offered by Democrats that passed the House. So Republicans weren't being obstructionists. They take 60 bills authored by Democrats and pass them through to Harry Reid, and Harry won't touch them. But it blew me away when she said 298 of those bills were veto-proof, that they had that many members in the House that if the president does veto the bill...
That's remarkable.
298 of those bills could survive a veto? Are you
remarkable.
kidding me?
Absolutely incredible.
I've got more optimism for getting stuff done than what I thought, because I knew he was going to veto everything, but that may not matter on a lot of these.
He could become, this would be great, the next 2 years he could become the most overridden president in history.
I was thinking he would be the most vetoes in history, but you're right. It could be the most. That would be really cool, wouldn't it?
That would.
Didn't
No
see
doubt.
that coming. Now, there's a couple of lessons to learn from this thing, and I love what she said about the security agenda and the repeal agenda, and, the fact that they passed 40 bills for increasing job growth, and 38 times they repealed sections of Obamacare, and including a bill that completely repealed Obamacare. The Southern Border Security bills, the 12 replacement bill, all these things that they've done. They've got all this stuff, good stuff done. But let me be real clear here. Don't mistake what happened this year in 2014 as indicative of what's going to happen in 2016. And let me explain it this way. I mean, we look at this kind of landslide that went in so much. And we've talked about 2010, and even on this program, we talked about the conservatives will have their best chance of making gains in the off-year elections, 2010, 2014, 2018, etc. So you look back to 2010, and look how many more years. We've had 4 additional years under this president and under Harry Reid for the nation to really get ticked. And we know they are. We know that 2 out of 3 Americans think America's headed in the wrong direction. They're dissatisfied with the president, etc. So with that climate, you think turnout this year would be much higher than it was even 4 years ago, and it wasn't. We had 8 million fewer voters in 2014 than we had in 2010. We had 1.1 million fewer Christians vote in this election than in 2010.
We got these results with fewer Christian votes.
We got these results. Well, now understand that overall went down 8 million, but Christians only went down 1.1 million.
Okay, so we had a higher percentage of the overall vote.
That's right.
Our folks showed up in a higher percentage than their folks, but we still left a lot of folks at home that should have been going to vote with us.
Yeah, we had a drop in turnout Christians from last time, but it wasn't as big as the drop of everybody else. And so in this election, the single largest voting bloc was conservative Christians. 32% of all votes cast by conservative Christians. That provided 54.6% of all Republican votes came from conservative Christians. So it really is because of conservative Christians that you really have the results in this time's election. But don't read that as, well, this is what's going to happen in 2016. Look what happened in 2014. No. When everybody else shows up, and you know, we've had programs recently about how that even a lot of Christians think really goofy on these things. They're not anywhere close to biblical values. So don't read what happened in 2014 as a mandate for 2016. That's just not the case. But what we have in 2014 is because we did show up, we got a real shot at moving forward some very conservative things, some very helpful things for the nation over the next few months and over the next 2 years, quite frankly. So there's real good optimism and a reason for optimism. We'll see how it all plays out a few months from now. But there is a lot of good reason. But do not mistake this for a reading of what's going to happen in 2016.
Are you really saying, too, I mean, we have to be vigilant. We have to take what happened this time and build on it, not take what happened this time and go home and rest.
Yeah, we can't say, oh, look, the nation's headed the right direction. We're going to win 2016. Not so. Maybe we win it, but if you think it's going to be anything less than a knockdown, drag-out fight, if you think it's going to be anything less than us having to drag every person we know to the polls, you're wrong.
And during this fight, don't you think we have to stay vigilant in making those calls to all those members of Congress saying, we want an aggressive agenda, don't you dare play it safe?
You bet. We cannot sit on the sideline because if the other guys weigh in and we don't, they will be the loud voice, and they can have an impact in turning this unless we stay engaged. Yeah,
no doubt. All right, folks, we got to stay busy. We've got to be vigilant. Price of freedom is eternal vigilance. Thanks for listening today to WallBuilders Live.
We stand undivided.